I will call this City Council meeting dated May the 12th, 2026 to order. We do have a quorum present. Please join me in a moment of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings that you continue to provide for us in this city, Father. We thank you for the grace that you show us every day through our actions and your love, Father. Father, we ask that through your grace, we are able to show your grace to others, and that we as a community can love each other the way that you love us. Father, as we go through this meeting tonight, I just ask for your wisdom to rain down upon this council, Father, so that we may make the decisions that are right for this city. And in your glory, Father, I ask these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Outstanding. No tripping over the pledge this time. Getting better. At this time, I'd like to open it up for council announcements. Council comments may be made by council on the following topics without specific notice: expression of thanks, congratulations, or condolences; information on holiday schedules; recognition of public officials, employees, or citizens other than employees or officials whose status may be affected by the council through action; reminders of community events; update on city properties. No action may be taken on these items. David?
Just a couple of real quick announcements. A lot of people may have seen that the Bulldog Community Park did receive a $25,000 grant from the LCRA. It will go towards finishing up the splash pad and most likely have some money left over for a few other improvements out at the park. So look forward to that. Good things coming. They will be announcing an opening date of the splash pad in the very near future. Our goal is May 30th at the latest, but stay tuned. We will announce it.
Good.
Amy?
Just want to let everybody know, Clyde will be having their citywide yard sale event this weekend. Hopefully, we've got about over 50 listings, so it's going to be huge. So get out and shop, clean out your garage, and watch out for people while you're out.
Awesome. Jim?
I just want to recognize, I know we're going to recognize her here in a little bit, but Linda Cavanaugh is back with us after her accident, health issues, vacation, whatever she's calling it today. Linda, we've missed you, and we are so glad you are back with us.
Thank you very much.
Mike?
No, sir.
Bo? Okay. I would like to take a minute to, again, recognize all the hard work that's gone into all the volunteer hours that have gone into the work over at Bulldog Community Park. It is a lot of work behind the scenes. Honestly, none of it would have started if David and his family hadn't stepped up to the plate, so thank you.
Thank you.
I am excited for that to finally open. That was my clap. I am excited for that to finally open. I think our kids are really going to enjoy it, and it couldn't be a more perfect time with the end of school year happening. So, moving on to public comments and receipt of petitions, not positions. At this time, anyone will be allowed to speak on any matter other than personnel matters or matters under litigation for a length of time not to exceed 3 minutes. No council or board discussion or action may take place on a matter until such matter has been placed on an agenda and posted in accordance with the law. Mr. Aaron Young, we will start with you today.
Been a while.
If you could, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Aaron Young. Address is 2177 Private Road, 1122, here in Clyde, Texas.
Time starts now.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, council members. First, I would like to congratulate the new city administrator, Kevin Rule, on stepping into this role for the city of Clyde. Growth and change bring both opportunities and challenges, and I appreciate the willingness to serve the community during an important time for the city. Next item is, I also want to respectfully ask for clarification regarding public access to council agenda packet materials. I understand that certain items, i.e. executive session discussion, legal matters, or economic development negotiations may not be publicly available, but for many agenda items, we only see the brief one-line description on the posted agenda with little or no presentation before public comment is open. As a result, it is difficult to determine what actions are actually being considered, how the item impacts the community, or whether public input would even be useful before a vote occurs. I ask the council to consider either making publicly reasonable packet materials more accessible prior to the meetings, or providing a clearer staff or council presentations and discussions before public comment is made. I've seen how this improves transparency, help residents provide more informed input, and reduce confusion about what city actions and priorities. Right now, my two questions include, why is the city looking into an agreement with Stifel for municipal advisory services? And what's the purpose of the special use permit for Clyde Lake? Lastly, I would like to revisit concerns regarding development of roadway infrastructure. We all understand the city does not own many of the major roadways surrounding current and future development areas, specifically portions of I-20 roadway system. Those roadways are ultimately owned and controlled by TxDOT. However, the city does influence the growth and access that feeds into those corridors through development approvals, utilities, zoning, and planning decisions. My comments are not in opposition to growth. I understand the importance of expanding housing and economic opportunities in our community, and also support reasonable development that keeps infrastructure and safety in mind. The goal is to ensure roadway planning and safety improvements remain a priority as development pressure increases. We are already seeing increased stressful traffic interactions in areas where roadway layouts were not originally designed for the level or type of traffic now occurring. These concerns are not theoretical. I have previously submitted dashcam footage showing stressful and dangerous interactions involving 18-wheelers and passenger vehicles along the I-20 frontage roads, and more specifically, the Hayes Road area. Those situations highlight how quickly roadway conflicts can develop when traffic patterns change faster than infrastructure. I continue to encourage the city to continue pursuing stronger coordination with developers and TxDOT early in the planning process so that roadway safety, access management, and infrastructure improvements are considered before problems become worse. Thank you for your time and service to the community.
And have you, that statement of fact, have you seen the agenda on the website?
Said council there can't be any council discussion with these items. Next, we've got Mr. Ethan Kunkel with CWS.
Mayor, council, how are y'all this evening?
State your name and your business affiliation for the record, please.
Ethan Kunkel, President and owner of County Waste Service. Just wanted to thank y'all for having us this evening. Haven't got a chance to sit up here and talk much in front of y'all, and glad to do it this evening. I'm Ethan Kunkel, Tanner Abbott sitting behind me, both born and raised in this area, went to school here in Clyde, been members of this community for a long time. It's been kind of a goal of ours to come in and start talking trash since we started hauling trash. Some of our first customers are right here on the outskirts of town. We started that business in 2015 hauling a cattle trailer around and picking up trash in the rural areas around Eula and Clyde, and we're growing that business into a fairly successful business, and glad to have the opportunity to come visit with y'all this evening about your trash service. So without further ado, I'll leave it to Tanner to answer any questions tonight. If there's any questions, we'll get going, and glad to have a new city manager here in town. So thank y'all.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Eli Mize. With Republic Services, please state your name for the record and your business affiliation.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Eli Mize, I'm with Republic Services. Just wanted to say thank you all for having us here tonight as well. Not to echo Ethan, but obviously with Republic Services, I'm the operations manager there at the Abilene office, and we service a big majority of the Big Country. I grew up here in the Big Country. I was born and raised in Anson, and went to school over there. Actually went to first grade in Clyde, Texas. So it's been a long time since I was here, but you know, obviously a big part of the community. All of my employees that work for us are, excuse me, a big part of the community as well. And, you know, we're looking forward to also answering any questions that y'all might have about trash service or anything that we can be of a service to. So, anyway, that's all I got. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Dale Garner with AEL. Dale, please state your name, your business affiliation for the record.
Dale Garner, and I'm with AEL. Mayor, Council, Administration, I want to thank you for your time this evening, just quickly. And I always want to thank you for the relationship we've had with you for the last 4 or 5 years. You've been bringing your waste to our landfill. So we appreciate that relationship, and we thank you for that business. So we own Abilene Environmental Landfill. We're the Texas owned and independent here in Abilene. Green Logistics is our waste hauling division. So we service 10 municipalities in this area, as well as others who bring their waste to us as well, Trent and others. Owning the landfill allows us some unique opportunities. I think when you look at our proposal, one of the things, allowing the customers actually to bring a 10-yard trailer into us once a year, it's just something unique that allows us that opportunity. The other thing about owning the landfill is we're permitted to operate 24/7. It doesn't mean anything Monday through Friday on a sunny summer day. It does mean something in the winter when we get a natural disaster, or we have a tornado, or something comes through, or you have a sewer line break on a ranch and you need something that we can provide by being open on the weekend. So honestly, just want to thank you for your time, and y'all got a good decision. You've got 3 great companies. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, that concludes our public comment and petitions. This time we'll be moving on to the official swearing in of our new city administrator. I would like to say before we make this official swearing in that your city council, we worked extremely hard to go through this process. We had, I'm going to say roughly 18 to 20 applicants. We narrowed those down to the top 4 candidates that we saw and that had the experience that we wanted, the personality, the knowledge base to be able to service the city of Clyde the right way. We did a Zoom call meeting with the 4 of those candidates. We narrowed it down to 2 that we brought in person. And I think we made an excellent choice. Kevin has already come in and hit the ground running. He's got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge that he brings to the table. And more than anything, he just seems to fit the personality of the city of Clyde. So you guys, when you see him out and about, make sure you welcome him in, pick his brain, make sure he knows that you're going to be watching him under a microscope. So at this time, Connie, would you...
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Kevin Roll,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duties and the office
the duties and the office
of City Administrator
of City Administrator
for the City of Clyde,
for the City of Clyde,
Callahan County,
Callahan County,
and the State of Texas,
and the State of Texas,
and will,
and will,
to the best of my
to the
ability,
best of my ability,
preserve,
preserve,
protect,
protect,
and defend the Constitution and laws
to defend
defend
the Constitution
and laws
and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome in, Kevin. We are glad you're here. Now we get to break in, make it official.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
Next Tuesday, 6 o'clock, we're gonna have, meet the city manager. So, a week from today, we're gonna have a little meet and greet, no, over at the, Citizen Center.
And your wife and daughter will be here?
Hopefully so, yes. Yes. So next Tuesday, plan on it, we'll have, another get-together.
Okay.
All right, moving on to agenda item 7.1, consider an act upon approving the minutes from the regular meeting of April 14th, 2026 as printed. Do I have a motion regarding item 7.1?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve by David Mann,
I'll second.
seconded by Amy Jolly. All in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to agenda item 8.0. We have a couple of presentations to make. I'm going to start with Ms. Kavanaugh, if you could join me up front. For those that are not aware, Ms. Kavanaugh has been with us for 15 years of service. Well, not today, but recently. And if you've ever worked in and around government offices, making it 15 years is a tremendous feat. I worked at the prison and I made it 8, so. Ms. Kavanaugh, in recognition of your outstanding service and dedication to the city of Clyde, we commend you for your 15 years of service. We really appreciate you and we love having you here.
Thank you so much.
And Mr. Jason Biba. Biba? Is that what it was?
Biba, yes.
Oh, good Lord.
I'll tell you why he said that later.
Well, my nickname growing up as a kid, since my mother's already took my business out there, was Bebo. So, Jason has made it so far with the city of Clyde 5 years, and we have worked 5 years out of him, and we look forward to working a lot more.
Good job.
One more. One tried to get through without being recognized, but, you know, we are kind of hard-headed and we like to embarrass people. So Miss Connie Thornton. Connie has been with the city of Clyde for 20 years.
Wow.
She has been with us through a lot of different people, a lot of different city managers, a lot of mayors, a lot of council members. And, you know, I talked about 15 years, 20 years is insane. So when you can make it through 20 years of this and all the fussing and the fighting and the bickering and all of that good stuff, you've really done something. So Connie, we appreciate you and we love you.
We did.
Yes.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Connie.
If you ever want to see a hard job, look at a city secretary. She gets it from top and bottom. All right, moving on to 9.0, regular agenda. Consider with possible action approving an agreement with Stifel for municipal advisory services. Kevin, can you explain to us little bit about this
I would love to.
proposal.
Currently, or in the past, the last one that the city used for issuing of bonds and assisting the city with bonds has been government capital. I've come in and I have suggested to switch that to Stiefel for a number of different reasons. The first one is that they actually have a municipal bond desk that they can assist us with. They do capital markets and underwriting, which government capital does not. They do economic and research, that government capital does not. They have in-house legal, regulatory, and compliance team to keep the city in compliance for their bonds. The main financial advisor that we would be working with is Brad Anks. I worked with him for 15 years at other cities and locations. And then also they have a gentleman called Dane Kopinski, and he does development finance specialist. What that is that he works with different developments, TRIZs, PIDs, 380 agreements, that we would be able to utilize his expertise that he has used in other cities. In addition to that, Brad has worked with other cities who have defaulted on their debt payments. One of those would have been Lamarck down in Houston. If you go Google them, you'll see that they recently defaulted on some bonds. He has helped them reestablish their credit. They still have other issues, but he has worked with them. And also Toega ISD, it's up by Fort Worth. They also had some issues and he's worked with them. So he knows our situation. Not that we're going to be issuing any bonds in the near future, but he can assist us in any developments that we have with planning and doing analysis on that, looking at our tax rate, our ad valorem tax, sales tax, suggesting ideals for us. And probably the best thing is that they are cheaper than government capital that we used before. And we're getting a lot more services out of it. And when government capital came in and gave us the proposals, or when we worked with them 3 years ago, that's when we actually had a better bond rating. Now it is a lot harder because of our bond rating has gone down. And we do need some specialists that can come in here and help us on that regard. So that's why I'm bringing it forward, is just for the services that the city gets. Now, the service doesn't pay any money until we actually do something. So all of this upfront stuff is helps us get ready for if we ever do anything. And that's the only time that they get paid is if something happens, they would get paid. It's that way with every financial advisor out there that a city would work with.
So I have just a couple of questions before I turn it over to council. Is this something we need currently? Is it time sensitive? I mean, is it a pressing need?
We urgently need it
Right?
with the projects and my workload on what I'm dealing with currently. So yes,
Okay.
it would be very beneficial in a lot of these areas with expertise, analysis, running numbers, in-depth numbers.
Okay. And this is something that we can't handle ourselves? We don't have
Correct.
manpower?
Correct. This is a normal function to have an FA that's continually communicating with city staff about developments in the area and advising them on taxes, sales tax, that sort of thing.
So it's the financial benefit we're going to see returned to us more than what the investment is?
Correct.
To what degree?
Correct. Well, there's really no investment payable until an actual sale of bonds would take place. So let's say that we would sell some bonds, the fee schedule is in there, and it would be depending upon how much we sell in bonds. And that's across the board through any financial advisor. Just like the previous one had that same schedule, except for this one's cheaper.
Okay.
Not by much, but it is cheaper for a lot more experience and a lot more knowledge.
Okay. David, sorry.
Looking through this, and maybe I've just missed it, what are the fees? You mentioned several consulting services as far as 380s, developments, and all that. I did not see a fee schedule for those type of services, unless I just missed it.
On page 2 of the proposal, it says compensation number 4.
Page 2 of the proposal, which is what?
Oh, I'm
page?
sorry. Let me get on the proposal. Let me get in our booklet. Page
3,
10.
page 10.
Page 10 in your
10 at
booklet.
the bottom, yeah. 3 at the top.
Those that are online or at home, you can look into the agenda because this contract is actually in the agenda that you can look at. But on page 2 in council's packet, under 4 compensation. And so in this case, let's take an example of, let's say that we did 15 million in bonds, okay? Just to pull out a number for comparisons. Stiefel would actually charge 125,000, okay? Capital, government capital, they would have charged $137,000. So let's say that we go 3 years and we don't do anything, but they advise us on sales tax 380 agreements, public development on how to fund it, how to structure that. They don't get paid until bonds are sold 3 years down the road. But in that meantime, I have access to them for any question related to the bonds, the transaction, scheduling of debt or public finance that we may have.
Gotcha.
And there's a lot more, there's a lot more that we could look at. Like I said, we already have the TRIZs set up. There's also PIDs that you can set up as well. You know, we've had some 380 agreements. So they would look at all of those and advise us because they've done this all over the state of Texas and New Mexico.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Pretty much, yeah.
Do you have anything else?
No.
Amy?
No, I'm good.
Jim?
Is this going to affect the bonds that we have currently with government capital or?
No, because we don't have anything with government capital. What it will help us with is that we've already made some preliminary calls. One of those were to BAM. BAM was the insurance company for the bonds that defaulted on. And so we have talked to them already preliminary about how to help our situation. And so we're already working with them on kind of what we need to do. And they're saying, you know, if you kind of looked at this, did this or this, you know, we can see a path forward. And so we're already started those discussions, and that's things that we get from Stiefel, he would help us with those conversations. And he can spur those on, which he hasn't done yet because we have to have this agreement in place, but that's what we would rely on him for.
Okay. That's it? Mike?
No, sir.
And Bo?
I was looking there, everything was good compared to what government capital does.
Okay. With no further comments from council, I will entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to postpone this action until next meeting to give us all a little more time to review and study.
I have a motion to postpone by David Mann. I have no seconds. Motion fails. No further motions?
So I make a motion to approve an agreement with Stiefel for municipal advisory services.
I have a motion from Bo Davidson.
I'll second it.
Second. Gotta let my pen catch up. Seconded by Amy Jolly to approve. All in favor? All opposed? 4 in favor. David opposed. Motion passes 4-1. Moving on to agenda item 9.2, consider with possible action adopting the city public affairs officer policy. We're going to put you on the spot now. This is who is our IT officer. I have asked Chris to take on an additional role of public affairs officer. Public affairs officer, if you could explain to the council what it does, what its purpose is.
Absolutely. So many municipalities, counties, organizations have a PAO, it's public affairs. They are the liaison between media, social media, and the governing body, i.e. y'all. So it centralizes the communication, in this case, from the city to the media, i.e. KTEX, KTAB, Facebook, Instagram, everything over here. So what it does is it provides a unified message from those entities to that media source. So it also covers the city and liability-wise as well. So I've already been through the military, 46 Sierra, which is public affairs. I've already been certified in that. I'm going to a course later in July that is FBI and state. So I'll have those credentials on top of what I already conduct. And all I'm trying to do is centralize our message to the public. Make sure the public is informed of daily activities, meetings, etc. And make sure that one voice is heard from the city versus 20.
So this is basically an attempt for us to become more professional in our interactions with the public and the media as a whole. We wanted more transparency. That's one of the main focuses that I had coming into this office. But I also want to make sure that we act in a professional manner. What this does is it gives us guidance, a guidance point. It does not stifle any voices. It's just basically a point for us to go to and say, hey, Chris, I want to say this. How do I say it?
Exactly.
As it relates to elected officials. Now, as it relates to city personnel, if you'll look at scope where it says this policy applies to all city personnel departments and any individual acting on behalf of the city. If you are acting in a manner that directly represents the city and that is your purpose, then we would ask that you would at least make sure that your point is going to come across the way that you want it to. For those that work for the city, they need to go through Chris because
Right.
we've all seen situations where things were stated inappropriately or they were said the wrong way, and we want to avoid that. We want the best of Clyde to be put out to the general public and the media and everybody that looks at us.
Right. So for
And this
the-
is an attempt to do that.
For the city employees, this policy umbrellas all city employees, paid city employees. For elected officials, obviously y'all are different. So I am a sounding board. So I am hey Chris, I want to put out a message. How do you think this should go? And I just kind of rebound it back to you. I would say something like this. You know, you can take the guidance, not take guidance, but I'm just a sounding board for y'all on any of that kind of matter. But for employees, that this policy would umbrella them and encompass them.
Yep.
I just want to be a unified message for y'all and have the best intent for everybody.
So my recommendation with this, obviously, because I brought it forward, is I want to see something like this in place. So I'll open it up for council discussion. We'll start with Bo.
I think that's a great idea. So far, what you've done that I've seen has been great.
Thank you.
Very professional. I agree. Mike, you have anything to add?
No?
Okay. Jim?
The only thing that I have to add, I know back in January, we had a
Social media
resolution
policy, something like that.
about, and that was postponed.
Yes, sir.
We still haven't had a workshop on social media
Correct.
and us.
It's a little different. So what was proposed back then was not vented. How about that? How should I say that? So it did try and encompass elected officials, which you can't do because elected officials are different. So this doesn't encompass the elected officials. This is, I'm your sounding board. Please use me if need be. I'm always here, just need be. This umbrellas our entire personnel, which we already abide by anyway, just from normal common practice, but there's nothing in stone for it. So this would put it in stone for all city personnel to have that one source and something for the council and the administration to fall back on if something were to happen.
So would you, I don't know how to word this. If one of the council members or one of the employees, if they were going to post something on social media, would you want it to go through you before it went on?
So employees, yes, if adopted this policy, then yes, all employees, I'm already admin across all of our Facebook accounts, so I already manage that. I manage the site, all of our Facebook, even semi-hanners-ish. But, so I already do that. And the directors typically don't post anything without me knowing, or it's like reoccurring events, i.e. the library for toddler time or something like that. Stuff that I already know that's going to get posted. But if it's anything different outside of that, they already reach out to me for it. So it already has its funneling path. There's just nothing set in stone. Now for council, again, I'm just a sounding board. I'm just hey, please use me, I'm here. If you don't like my advice, then you don't, it's up to you if you like it or not. But I will try and give you the best advice that I possibly can.
Is this mainly for the city websites, the city?
Also, all city social media,
Okay.
all city social media accounts.
Rants and raves and.
Oh gosh, that's not my baby. Absolutely not. I don't want a part of that. That's not mine. No, sir. No, sir. Just our city stuff. So all of our 6 Facebook pages, our website, and stuff like that.
Good deal.
Amy?
I like the idea. Keeps our communications clear, transparent. I like it.
David?
Just want to thank you for what you've done so far. It really has made a difference in our feelings. To circle back to Jim's point a little bit, and I may have misinterpreted, but I wouldn't mind if you would be willing to host a little workshop for us as council and elected officials on
Absolutely.
social media etiquette and verbiage, especially when we're representing the city.
Absolutely. I'd absolutely be glad to do that. And whenever y'all have a session meeting or something.
I think I'd like to wait until he's gone through all of the schooling to get the legalities of it, but I think that's a great idea as well.
Something in the future, definitely.
Any other council input questions? I asked Chris to do that as an additional instead of hiring a new position so that the city could make best use of an asset that we already have instead of trying to spend an exorbitant amount on a position like this. So a lot of thought has gone into it, and I think it can be a great thing for the city. It's basically a conscience for us.
It is. And one other thing, I know a lot of people that are on rants and raves, so that's unfortunately one of the sites that I monitor. So, you know, if there's something that comes up, like something at the city park that comes up today, I'm immediately calling Kevin. Of course, our mayor was already on top of that, but it helps speed things along that aren't looking at those kind of things. So it helps. I mean, they all have full-time jobs. So, and they've got their work cut out for them for whatever they're doing. So it helps expedite trying to solve those problems. And it keeps them notified. So if something happens, I say, Kevin, just letting you know this is out there. So put it in the back of your mind. Oh, we do a Q&A, okay.
What it calls about me.
Trevor?
Sounds like you just encouraged us to use a
No.
non-governmental page.
No, that's not what I said.
That's what I heard.
That's not what I- You heard it
A
wrong.
little hazing, that's all right. Okay,
I have a
thank you,
que-
Chris.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you something real quick? Leave it to Mama, right? But if you do this with the council, can you follow that up with citizens that might want to?
So if it's,
No,
I'm gonna leave
so-
that to them.
Yes, well, thank you, Chris. God, I was in such a hard spot right there, because how do you tell Mama shh?
You tell Mama.
Anyways,
shush.
we are really doing our best to be more transparent and more open in our communications, and we are going to try to test little parts of that here and there and figure out what works. I think this is a huge step in that direction. I hope the council considers that. We'll move on to entertaining a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the city public affairs officer policy.
Motion from David Mann, seconded by Jim Rector. All in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to agenda item 9.3, consider with possible action to adopt resolution of the City of Clyde authorizing intervention in AEP Texas Incorporated's application to amend its Ryder Mobile temporary emergency electric energy facilities before the commission, approving cooperation with the cities served by AEP Texas, hiring Lloyd Gosling attorneys and consulting services to negotiate with the company and direct any necessary litigation and appeals, requiring reimbursement of city's rate case expenses, finding that the meeting at which this resolution is passed is open to the public as required by law, requiring notice of this resolution to the company and legal counsel. That is a very confusing paragraph. Can you please dumb it down for me, Kevin?
I am gonna let the city secretary handle that one.
Awesome.
It is the same thing that we do for Atmos every year. When AEP comes around and they start doing their budget and they start looking at stuff, they start putting out rates to cities and counties and things like that. And we are part of a coalition with a bunch of other cities, and we pay a very minimal, it's like a little bit more than $100 a year to be part of this coalition. And Lloyd Gosling represents all these cities, and they go in and they fight for the cities to get the best rate that they possibly can. That's what this is for AEP. We did it a couple months ago for Atmos. It's the same
Okay.
type thing.
So is this related to strictly city electricity, or is this related to citizen electricity?
Both.
Okay.
It's related to both. It's rates that they're looking to redo for next year. And I always send it over to our attorney, because our attorney has to sign off on it as well. I've already sent it over to her. She's reviewed it, and she's already put her stamp of approval on this resolution.
Awesome. David, any questions, comments?
I'm good.
Okay. Amy?
No.
Jim?
No, sir.
Michael?
No, sir.
Bo? At this time, I will entertain a motion regarding agenda item 9.3.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as written.
Yes, that's a good way to put that. I have a motion from David Mann to approve, seconded by Michael Shellhammer. All in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously. David is a smart man.
I remember that one.
Every once in a while.
Agenda item 9.4, consider with possible action issuing a special use permit for Potosi Live LLC for June 27th at Clyde Lake. I will preface this before I turn it over to Kevin for a little bit more explanation with the festival at the lake The July 4th Festival at the Lake is an expense the city cannot continue to absorb. It has been advised by our council that, that's a $25,000 party that we should not be paying for because it's not smart in our trying economic times. So it was kind of left for dead, to put it bluntly, and we were approached by an individual that asked that if he were to take care of the fireworks show, that we could continue the tradition that we've had for so long. So I took with him, I took on that responsibility. And we plugged along with the plan that July 4th was going to be our celebration with July 4th Festival at the Lake. And then we were approached by an outside entity that wanted to contribute. They wanted to enhance. But there was a scheduling conflict. So what we've decided is, rather than giving up completely on July 4th and not having anything on the 250th anniversary of the 4th of July, that we would do 2 weekends, June 27th, July the 4th. The individual, the person, which he's already stated he doesn't mind me sharing his name, Hugh Gray, is going to take care of the fireworks on July the 4th. This entity is going to take care of June 27th, and I will let them come forward now and kind of share what she's asking for.
Thank you. My name is Allie Middleton, and I am with No Surprises Events and Design LLC. I am
Allie,
working.
can you speak a little?
Oh yes, sorry. I am working very closely with Potosi Live, and they have brought me in to help plan the festival. And so basically, we would have bands on the stage, do a fireworks show, food trucks, a vendor market, all the things. And so we are asking specifically for a special event permit to close down the lake so that we can help control how many people are coming in, because we are looking to get a TABC license, and that just helps us control, who's coming in. We can give wristbands to those that are 21 and older so that they can go to the bar and buy a drink and that sort of thing. And that way whenever the event is over, we shut it down and everybody goes home. And so that is why we are requesting the special use permit.
So to kind of reiterate and clarify, your group is asking us to allow you to close the lake down for a 24-hour period, roughly,
Yes.
to control the ingress and egress of people that may be inebriated or, consumed a few too many, as required by TABC's rules, so that you can sell beverages at the festival itself. And the funding, the proceeds from this are going to go to.
A portion of the money that is made for this event will go back to the city. We're looking to do a donation also to the fire.
Okay. So the proceeds, the proceeds in excess of costs, of course, are going to go to our fire department and the city for rental of that portion of the lake. Is that's simplest way to put it. Kevin, do you want to add anything to this?
Just want to emphasize that the city is not involved in the June 27th event or the July 4th event. Those are both by independent organizations, and though we very much enjoy 4th of July, we do not have a part in that, although we may enjoy the festivities. one thing that the city or I was worried about it, and we've been working with Ally on, is 4 things that I've requested from Potosi Live and no surprise events. And that's EMS coverage, which they are getting and providing. Fire protection, which they have been with the fire department and talked about that. PD or police presence there for control, and then also insurance, that they would provide us as a covered insurer for that date in question while they're out there. So they are providing all that information, and we're checking to making sure that everything is good on those 4 fronts. And then the event itself will be run by Potosi Live and No Surprise Events. And so that's who's gonna be running the event. So this is just to shut down the lake, as you said, for a 24-hour period from Saturday morning until probably Sunday morning. So it'd be the whole day of Saturday, the 27th.
And it really is an attempt to adhere to TABC rules and prevent drunk driving. So,
And to just control traffic overall.
yes, ma'am. So, any questions for them both?
Yes, we have people staying in RVs at the lake. Is that gonna be an issue?
No, it's not. We know that there are some permanent residents there, and so we'll work with y'all on that. And then we are looking to also possibly rent the remaining so that y'all can still make money from that as well.
Michael?
No.
Jim?
So y'all are gonna have a party on the 27th, and then y'all are also gonna do stuff for the 4th, or you're not?
Two separate
The 4th is separate from
Y'all's
us.
is the
Ours is the 27th.
27th, and then Mr. Gray or whomever will do the other.
Sure.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yes.
Amy?
Okay.
David?
And just to be clear, it will be a ticketed event so that you do control the, have you set the limit of how many?
Right now, we're looking at 5,000.
Perfect, thank you.
So to kind of elaborate a little further, the reason that we're not needing that on July the 4th, they are getting a TABC license for their event alone, controlling the flow of traffic for that event alone. July 4th is more BYOB. Okay? It's safety and control, completely separate entities, so. All right,
Thank
so at this time, I will entertain a motion regarding agenda item 9.4.
I'll make a motion to approve the special use permit for Potosi Live LLC for June 27th at Clyde Lake.
I'll
Motion
second
to
it.
approve by Michael Shellhammer,
I will second it.
seconded by Amy Jolly. All in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, that concludes the regular agenda portion. Moving on to the financial statement, income statement summary ending April 30th. Bo?
Casey, will you get Chris?
Come on, Chris.
Oh, there it goes. Micro HDMI. There we go. I think it is. All right, Mr. Mayor and Council, the first slide here, just going over the audit.
Hold on
We had-
one second.
Okay. I'm not gonna cover too much on that one. Try to keep it short as possible. There we go. All right. And since the audit just recently came out, I want to take some time to go over the financials. It relates to the 2025 fiscal year, which was October 1st through September 30th, 2025. Because of the way the Government Accounting Standards Board, GASB, reporting works and different measures of focus, proprietary funds and all that, I wanted to keep them consistent between the general fund and the enterprise fund. So that's why it says analysis on there rather than exactly word for word, 100% from the audit. And then also why on the general fund there will be a showing at the end of the year the cash going in and cash coming out versus using a full accrual style of or basis of accounting. And this is for the general fund, which is a governmental fund for the purposes of providing services such as policing, parks, administration, code enforcement, library, streets, animal control. The next slide is, and just go over the numbers just a little bit. So operating revenues, you're good. And with the receivables and payables, there is about a 60-day delay on that. These were incurred within the fiscal year 2025, but not yet actualized until the following year. These are from fund statements reported in the modified accrual basis. This provide a better picture of where Clyde stood in regards to cash flows on September 30th, and to make it consistent with the enterprise fund reporting in the audit report to the next slide. I do not add the deferred inflows that you see down there in white. Oh, you can go back. I was making a reference to the next slide. Yeah, I know, right? The deferred inflows in white, because I'm not counting that. That's delinquent property taxes and incurred interest on those. The majority of that was actually before that fiscal year, so that's something we may see, may not see. And I also want to point out that the end-year fund performance metric is not from the auditor's report itself. It is a sum of the line amounts that are presented. And the next slide. And this is for the enterprise fund. It is considered a proprietary fund since most of its revenues are from billed service charges. This is the major fund for water, sewer, and sanitation. On the left, I show in more detail what makes up the revenues and expenses as reported in the audit on page 18. The right side is a tally as seen in the previous two slides. I condensed the end-year cash inflows into the same slide. This information primarily comes from page 17. Like the previous slide, I'm only presenting the current financial resources. The statement of net position uses the economic resource measurement focus. That's more long-term type of focus, which includes capital assets, depreciated on those assets, and long-term liabilities. Due to the liquidity condition that the city has faced over a few years now, I'm only focusing on the kind of the entry year information. The debt service line amount will increase dramatically in 2026. This is because of the amendment to the performance services amortization schedule back in November 2024. This split the payment into semi-annual amounts and worked the February payment, that was the 2025 February, into the balance. In addition, the August payment was deferred until February of this year. This increases the debt service for the enterprise fund by $1.66 million in 2026, which includes the $29,000 in fees. The deferred payment, regular payment, and fees, all total to be $1.12 million, were paid in February, with $545,000 remaining for August from the performance services note. The performance fund shows that there was only a maximum of $529,000 margin last year, making the situation very tight for August of this year and requiring an infusion of cash to compensate for those amounts. It is important to note on this slide, I show what's reported in audit report. I provide a full number on the total debt service paid, which was 1.055 million. In a later slide, this would actually bring the year-end performance metric even lower. Since the auditor uses the economic resources measurement focus, it does not consider principal as an expenditure. Instead, this measurement focus considers the principal as an asset and then adjusted by straight line depreciation of the assets based on expected life. So based on the information, a more accurate year-end fund performance would be 284,000. The next slide. The steps here were to make the governmental and proprietary funds consistent in presentation and do so in an easy to digest manner. It is required by GASB that proprietary funds be reported in the modified accrual basis, whereas governmental funds are generally reported in full accruals, such as the management discussion analysis, on pages 5 through 7. To simplify that, I presented both in the former, which shows the year-end cash inflows. However, the city uses full accrual accounting internally, where revenues and expenditures are reported as they're incurred. Let's see, next slide. This is the budget versus actual. This is for the general fund. This is in the audit itself, audit report. And it's not going to be for the enterprise fund, so I had to include those numbers separately. Now this is reported on page 39 of the audit report. General fund revenues were 1.059 million over budget in favor of the city. This was due to the administrative cost allocation from the enterprise fund to cover clearing payments such as biweekly payroll, monthly benefits, and monthly payables. The administrative cost allocation from the EDC is for salary of the EDC director, which is a dual role held by the city administrator. General fund expenditures were $879,000 over budget in favor of the city. The Parks and Recs Department expenditures were over projected. In addition, the principal on the debt was also over projected. Currently, the general fund securities debt is backloaded with long maturities, and only a small amount towards the principal actually matured. This may not have been an error in the budgeting process, as the budget on the principal was in line with both of the major funds. So you take the debt from the enterprise fund and the general fund, and then it actually added up there because the auditor only did for the can only do it for the general fund on that one. All right, next slide. Now this is going to be for the enterprise fund on what was budgeted that year, back in September 10th, 2024. And I have had to for this one I had to reference the budget adopted in September, as well as the income statements for that period and my spreadsheets on the debt. This is because the GASB audit report does not provide budgetary comparison for proprietary funds as a disclaimer. This is not for an report, but a supplementary information I've compiled. Enterprise fund revenues were budgeted at $3.9 million. Actual was $4.29 million in favor of the city. Enterprise fund expenditures were budgeted $1.86 million. Actual was $4.8 million, not in favor of the city. Some of this because of the debt service budgeting mentioned in the previous slide. In the adopted budget, all debt service was budgeted to the General Fund Administration Department. The actual debt service for this fund was $1.599 million, when included the deferred performance services payment from August. The additional actual expenditures were from intra-fund transfers for administrative cost allocation, as mentioned in the previous slide, and transfers for debt service sinking funds. When reconciled in the totality of the information, the enterprise fund expenditures were $1.25 million over budget. Next slide. Positive developments. This is the good stuff that's going on. There have been significant improvements in the council involvement in the budgeting process from late July through September 2025. In addition, a definitive ongoing commitment in improving financial and operational oversight. The successful implementation of operations budget cuts and reallocation of city workforce to mitigate efficiency losses. The third thing was the creation and ongoing success of the Bulldog Community Park Board, which serves to offer an improved experience for residents with the potential to stimulate single-family home demand and area property values for homeowners. All of this is with no measurable cost to taxpayers. Ending the city's funding of the Independence Day celebration at the lake, instead fostering a citizen-ran and funded initiative for the event, which is in process and being headed up by the mayor as a private citizen. Amending the fee schedule to reflect the city's costs, such as meter installation fees, ensuring the ongoing success of the 501c3 Citizens EMS, an alternative for this vital service would likely be considerably more for the city and the residents. The ongoing reinvigoration of the Clyde Economic Development Corporation as a nexus to spur development, which translates to increased revenues for the city and aid the success of local businesses. Setting in the motion a new Chamber of Commerce formation of local business owners. There will be a town hall on Monday the 18th at 6 p.m. at the Community Center. Establishing a public affairs officer position which provides consistent pipeline that translate the city's goals to public awareness. In addition to the promotion of Clyde's local businesses, such as the recent grand opening ribbon cutting event. A Chapter 380 development agreement to upgrade water and sewer infrastructure for TCEQ compliance, improving quality service and promoting development for the interstate area growth. The ongoing work on securing grants such as the Texas Water Development Board. That's the water supply and infrastructure grants. Councilwoman Jolly has been heavily involved in this. Enhancing transparency. This presentation is part of that. You may have noticed the attachments appended to this evening's agenda on the website. The Public Affairs Officer, Chris Barnett, plays a role in this. Improved transparency continues to progress. Administrator Rule has recently announced his plans to prove this during his one-on-one with K-Texas News. I'm sure there are things that I'm missing from this list. There are a number of plans, initiatives, and negotiations in the work. Due to all the involvement and hard work by the mayor, council, and administration, the early process consists of competitive, sensitive information to protect our position and that of other parties involved. I want to thank you for your time and presenting information. I know it's a little longer than usual because of the audit. And the next slide is just a really quick at a glance for the month of April. And going up to May 12th, that's for the cash balances and how much is put aside right now for debt services. Balances are improving with an additional $307,000 available for the August debt services since April 13th. $757,000 is already allocated to debt payments with an additional $154,000 available in debt service accounts, debt reserve accounts. This has allowed the city to lower monthly required amount, which includes May. The margin is thin, but we're on a positive track. And that's all on this presentation.
Outstanding.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It takes a lot to be able to decipher all of that information, so thank you for doing that. And again, thank you for dumbing it down for me. Moving on to agenda item 11.0. Executive session. The council may enter into closed or executive session to discuss the following. Agenda item 11.1, convene into closed meeting pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 551 Government Code, Vernon's Texas Codes annotated in accordance with the authority contained in Government Code 551.086, Economic Development concerning Star Clyde, Government Code 551.072, Deliberations about Real Property concerning Solid Waste Services, Government Code 551.072, deliberations about real property concerning the acreage located at 3550 County Road 275 in Clyde. And Government Code 551.086, economic development concerning 821 Cherry Street in Clyde. So at this time, it is 7:09. Council will convene into executive session.
Cameron
guys are welcome.
texted me about 30 minutes ago and said he'd be here in about 30 minutes.
You guys are welcome to hang around and visit if you'd like, or At this time, no motions, no action taken. Moving on to Government Code 551.072, deliberations about real property concerning solid waste services. Are there any motions in regard to this one?
I'll make a motion to give the city administrator permission to move forward with negotiations regarding solid waste services.
I have a motion to direct city staff to move forward with negotiations regarding solid waste services.
I'll second.
Seconded by Michael Shellhammer. All in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously. Concerning Government Code 551.072, deliberations about real property concerning the acreage located at 3550 County Road 275, Clyde, Texas. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to direct city staff to negotiate a contract for the sale of 3550 County Road 275.
I have a motion from David Mann to direct staff,
I'll second that.
seconded by Amy Jolly. All in favor? All opposed? Again, passes unanimously. Regarding Government Code 551.086, economic development concerning 821 Cherry Street, Clyde, Texas. Are there any motions regarding this one? No motions, no action taken. Presentation by Mr. Cameron Gully, CPA, providing the final financial audit report for the fiscal year 24-25 for the city of Clyde.
How are y'all?
Good.
Good. That's the nuts and bolts of the presentation tonight. Sorry I was late, I had another meeting. It was at the same time. I've got 6 board meetings this week. This is a board meeting week. So I'm meeting myself coming and going, so I'm sorry about that. But hopefully y'all didn't impact your meeting any more than it already was gonna be because of me not being here at the start of your meeting. But you should have 2 things in front of you. You should have the audit report that should be bound. I've got an unbound copy in front of me. And then you've got what's called the management letter, and this is really kind of just a reemphasis of matters related to the continuing concerns of the city's financial condition from where it started last year when y'all defaulted on your debt. And now I've got a couple of schedules attached to the back of that for your review that we'll go over as well. You know, a couple of things happened this year that positively impacted the city. First is y'all whittled down your outstanding current liabilities. Last year you had almost $800,000 in outstanding accounts payable because you didn't have cash to pay those liabilities. And so, you know, I made a recommendation, of which y'all did, to get a bridge loan, and First Financial Bank gave y'all the bridge loan that you needed to get current on all your liabilities. And that was nearly a 1-year term, 364-day loan for $1,272,000 that y'all got current on all your debt. So when we look at the cash numbers here in a minute, it's going to look like your cash is much improved. But you have to take into consideration that you borrowed $1.2 million to liquidate your liabilities to get your cash balances up. You've really not improved much at all from last year's position to this year's position, but you did nominally. And so take that as a positive. You should improve substantially this year because last year, for the year that ended 2025, you began increasing your tax rate. You increased your tax rate last year to 88 cents. Of course, that generated almost $450,000 of additional tax revenues that you were not getting, tax revenues that you definitely needed to do because you were not maximizing your effort to particularly the INS side of your tax rate. And this year, for the year that you're in right now, you've increased that tax rate to $1. And so that should generate an additional $500,000 in tax revenues for this year. So from the 2 years ended September of 2025 and September of 2026, you're going to generate an additional $1 million annually in tax revenues from what you just had just 2 years ago. And that's going to pay major dividends to y'all getting out of some of the financial binds that you've gotten yourselves into. A couple of other things that happened this past fiscal year is that you did get current again on your bonded debt. Y'all used the proceeds from First Financial Bank to pay the delinquent loan balances on your certificates of obligation that you were outstanding on. Got those current and were able to use that cash to do that. So as of the end of September of 2025, you are current on all your bonded certificates of obligation. You still defaulted, but before you defaulted, you notified Performance Services or First State Bank that holds the loan on that big loan that's non-bonded that you were going to miss that payment. And so you did miss that payment, but they restructured the remaining payments to make that up subsequently, of which you've made that up in August and February of 2025 and 2026, February of 2026 and August of 2026. So as of August of 2026, you should be current on that because you made the catch-up payment in February of 2026. So with all that being said, let's look at the numbers briefly, and then we'll go kind of dovetail into this, which I think is the more meaningful exhibit and discussion to have, and that is the management letter. On page 11, we'll look at the consolidated balance sheet, which is the statement of net position of the city. The first column is going to be basically your governmental activities, which is going to be your general fund and your hotel and motel tax fund. And then the second column is going to be your utility fund, your enterprise fund. And so you have the subtotal there in column 3, and then your EDC is presented as a component unit in that very last column. We're not going to really talk about the EDC. It's really not a factor in the city's financial condition. So we're going to look at the first 2 columns as far as the balance sheet goes. You can see the top line, your total cash balances between general and enterprise has $568,000 in cash at end of year. If you were to compare that to cash last year, that's an increase in cash of about $300,000 from what your cash balances were last year. But again, you have to take that with a grain of salt. That included in that is borrowed money from First Financial Bank. And then your receivable balances, accounts receivable have grown because your water sales have grown. You can see in the accounts receivable, that balance in the second column is $447,000. That's an increase from last year of about $67,000. You can see the line just above that, property taxes receivable of $72,000. That's your uncollected delinquent receivable balances as of end of year. And that's a pretty nominal amount relative to the size of your levy every year. The internal balances are the theoretical borrowing from the general fund by the enterprise fund, $2.1 million. That's just a number that has grown or shrunk throughout the many years of the city's existence. And that's you kind of have a pooled cash account. And so as you pay out of that one account, you allocate those funds, those cash balances and the payments between funds, and that's how you balance the cash proportionate to the internal funds of those 2 fund activities. Capital assets, you can see the capital assets between general and enterprise. There weren't a whole lot of capital assets added this year except for what was ongoing. You can look in the footnotes to see the capital asset activity for the year, and that's going to be on footnote F on page 26. $110,000 of capital assets added in the general fund. A lot of that was going to be in parks and recs. Then in the enterprise fund, it's going to be the continuation of the construction that's been ongoing with the performance services stuff, mostly completed. And then the bigger one that was a non-cash transaction, but it was an incurred liability, is the legal fee or the engineering fees related to the right-of-way easements for your pipeline between Abilene and here. That Jacob and Martin has been carrying on their books, and they finally came to y'all last fall and said, hey, we need, or last summer, and say, hey, we need y'all to start making payments on this. And so they created a loan agreement with y'all, a 5-year loan for that $839,000 balance of unpaid engineering fees to them. And so we booked that, and so that became an asset relative to easements beginning this fiscal year. And there's a corollary loan for that y'all began making payments on of about $15,000 a month during this fiscal year. As of the first year, they made it a zero interest loan, and it will be a zero interest loan for the second year too, and it will graduate up to 8% in the final year of that maturity. And so that was a big thing that was added in the utility fund. Again, that was a non-cash item for the most part. Then if we'll look at the combined income statement, which is going to be on page 12, you'll see the top section of this is called the statement of activities. It's on the full accrual basis, and it is an aggregate income statement, if you will. The top section is going to be the general fund type activities. The middle section is going to be the enterprise activities net, and then the bottom section are going to be your general revenues to support the city's operations. And you can see, if you look at the very last lines in the total section, you can see the ending net position for the general fund is $261,000. Again, that's full accrual. Your fund balance is higher than that, and we'll look at that in just a second. But from a full accrual basis, the general fund, if you look at the third to last line item in that total column, that's the fourth column from the right, you can see it had a deficit from a full accrual basis of $400,000+, mostly due to depreciation expense is what caused that large deficit. The next column after that is going to be the enterprise fund net bottom line of $4.289 million, and that's a surplus on the book basis of $278,000. And then the subtotal of that, and then the last column again is the EDC, which we're not really going to focus on that at all. So in consolidated equity at end of year is $4.5 million, but most of that equity, if you turn back to page 10 or page 11, you'll see that most of that equity is tied up in the hard assets. When you look at the breakup of net position at the bottom of the page on page 11, you can see the biggest piece of that is tied up in your infrastructure. Net investment in capital assets, the total in column 3 is almost $6 million. That's stuff that cannot be liquidated to cash or not quickly. The unrestricted net position, which is the liquid portion of your equity, consolidated wise, is a negative $1.5 million between the two funds combined. And so that's the concern as we go forward. And of course, the caveat to that balance sheet is the opinion letter on page 1 that, again, just like last year in paragraph 4 of page 1, gives the qualified opinion about your ability to continue as a going concern because of your liquidity. And we mentioned that and put that in the footnote disclosure last year. And again, it's the same disclosure this year as well about your default on your scheduled debt service, and that your cash flows are not sufficient presently to meet all of your obligations. And so that's referenced in footnote O, that's in the footnotes, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Page 13 is the balance sheet of just the governmental funds, just the fund balances. And so this is different than the balance sheet that's on page 11 for the governmental fund column, because this only includes current assets and current liabilities. It does not include your capital assets. It does not include your long-term liabilities of the general fund or the governmental funds. And so as a result, because you're kind of upside down on capital assets in the general fund, you owe more than what you have in net capital assets, your fund balance is higher than your net position. You can see in the next to last line item in column 1 on page 13, your fund balance is $1 million in the general fund, whereas your net position on the page on page 12 in that fourth column from the right, the total at the bottom, is only $261,000. And that's because we don't have those non-current assets and non-current liabilities included in that balance sheet, of which, again, you owe more in debt than you have in assets on the non-current assets and liabilities. And then your other funds are going to be your special revenue funds, your LEOS fund, and your hotel motel tax fund. That's $26,000 combined. Fund balance of $1,026,000. The assets and the liabilities that are listed here are going to be the same that are on page 11. You just don't have the capital assets and the long-term liabilities listed as well. Page 14 is just a reconciliation balance sheet of the fund balance from page 13 to the net position on page 11. And those are the reconciling items to get from point A to point B. And then page 15 is the income statement on the modified basis of accounting, different than the full accrual basis of accounting that's on page 12. This is basically what you budget off of. And so when you look at the revenues of the general fund, which are $5.665 million, is going to be different than the revenues that are on page 12. As will be the expenditures, because we don't have buried in expenditures on page 15 depreciation expense. It's on page 12. And so depreciation expense is buried there, non-cash expense. This is basically quasi-cash, inclusive of capital assets. That again, of the general fund, were only $110,000. But also the principal on the debt paid by the general fund, which is towards the bottom of the page, of $140,000. That's a liability liquidation on page 12, and it's an expenditure on page 15. So from a fund balance standpoint, the general fund had a deficit. You can see the third to last line item of $56,000, and again, an ending fund balance of $1 million. How did it arrive at that fund balance? Well, if you run your finger up to towards the top of the page, you see what's supporting the general fund operation is the admin cost allocation. It's being paid both from the enterprise fund of $1,129,000 this past fiscal year, as well as $35,000 from the EDC for admin fees that the EDC paid the general fund. Without that subsidy, the general fund would have had a huge loss this year. And again, that goes back, again, in part to the tax rate and the tax revenues not being fully high enough to support its operations on its own. And so again, it has a fund balance of $1 million. If you turn to page 17 and 18, we'll see the income statement and balance sheet of just the enterprise fund standalone. The balance sheet on page 17 is the exact same balance sheet that's in the second column on page 11. And so when you look at those numbers on page 17, you can see the bottom line number of $4,289,000. If you go back to page 11 and look at the column 2 on page 11, it's the exact same information. And so it's just a reiteration. It's its standalone balance sheet is all that is. Page 18 is a more traditional income statement of the enterprise fund. Enterprise fund is full accrual, full accrual, full accrual all the time, unlike the general fund, which is full accrual part of the time and modified accrual part of the time. Enterprise fund is always full accrual, and so the numbers that are detailed out on page 18 are the same numbers in summarized form in its section on page 12. And so we look at the equity on page 12, the third to last column from the right, total bottom line number, that equity balance is the exact same on page 18. And the third to last line item on page 18 shows its surplus for the year, which was $278,000. Why did it have the surplus that it did? Because of capitalized costs plus revenues are substantially higher this year than what they were last year. We'll look at the revenue changes in a minute when we look at this other sheet of paper, but the revenues for the utility fund or the enterprise fund were quite a bit higher than last year. And it also didn't subsidize the general fund nearly as much this year as it did the previous year. Last year's subsidy of the general fund was almost $1.7 million. And so you can see this year was only $1,129,000. And so last year it absorbed a really large loss because it was kicking so much money over into the general fund that it did not have to do this year. It still pumped in a bunch of money to the general fund, but not nearly as much as last year. And because of the increase in revenue, the decrease in that subsidy, it ended up making a profit this year on paper. Still doesn't have any money in bank, so you can see that $116,000 is not a lot of money, but because all of its surplus money was going over into the general fund. You can see in total revenues, $4,336,000 in enterprise fund. Operating expenditures were $3.2 million. One thing to note is if you look in the water purchases, about 2/3 down, the operating expense categories, you can see that number was $205,000, which was essentially what y'all had in water purchases last year. Unlike what it has been in years past prior to that, when you are buying $700,000, $800,000 worth of water from the city of Abilene. So you're basically not fully supporting yourselves on water purchase, on water distribution, but you're mostly doing so. That's just one thing to keep in the back of your mind, though. You know, when it does get dry, without that water that you own in Abilene, you're going to be on City of Abilene water. There is that. Total operating expenses this year were $3,264,000. Depreciation, the non-cash portion of that expense, was $481,000. You can see that in the third to last line before that subtotal of total operating expenses. And so of that $3.2 million, $481,000 of it was non-cash. And again, you really didn't pay much in cash for capital expenditures in the enterprise fund. It was all mostly paid for out of the general fund for the year. The non-operating revenues and expense, interest income, that's going to be interest income on mostly the performance services account balances that you still had during the part of the year. You liquidated most of those balances as of the end of the year. And then the interest expense paid on the loans, as well as the refinance fees that you incurred as well earlier during the year, which ended up being about $40,000 of refinance costs and late payment fees. It's included in that $809,000. So equity balance, again, is $4,289,000 in the enterprise fund. Again, that looks good on paper, but it's non-liquid. And so when you look at page 17, you can see of that $4.289 million, the liquid portion of that is a negative $2.2 million. And that's the row. So let's go to the footnotes. And we'll look at the footnote disclosure that talks about your debt. And that's going to be, I'm starting on page 27 and then page 28. You'll see the outstanding obligations that you have. They're detailed out on page 27 and top of page 28. The new loans that were acquired during the year are going to be the two that are at the top of page 28. And that was the financing instrument from Jacob and Martin. Their $839,000 bill that y'all owed them for the easements. And again, that's an interest rate ranging starting at 0% up to 8% on that. And it's a 5-year note payable in $14,400 a month. And at end of year, you owed them still $688,000. And so you whittled that down by well over $100,000 during the year end. And so none of those $14,000 payments show up as an expense on the enterprise's books because it's just a liquidation of that liability. And then the tax anticipation note that was acquired through First Financial Bank is that second paragraph for the $1,272,000. It's a interest-only quarterly payment note with a balloon principal payment in November of 2025, of which you renewed and borrowed $975,000 roughly in November of 2025. So you whittled that down as well when you got into this fiscal year. Then you can see the changes in your outstanding debt in that table just below those paragraphs. You can see the $1,272,000 issued from First Financial Bank on that note payable for the general fund. The principals paid on those obligations of $110,000 on the certificates and then $30,000 on the notes to First Financial Bank on the fire truck that was bought back a number of years ago. And then on the business type activities, you can see the note payable added for the $839,000, and that again is through Jacob and Martin. And then the principal paid of $540,000 and $150,000 in principal on your revenue bonds, as well as the note payable on that note to Jacob and Martin. And then the paragraph just below that table is the default on that one First State Bank loan that you defaulted on that loan of $282,000 that was due in August. And then they deferred that once it defaulted and said, okay, we'll just make that payment in February of 2026, of which y'all did. And so subsequent event, if you go to footnote O on page 35, you can see that footnote N on page 35, you can see the subsequent events where the default occurred on August the 1st on that First Security Bank loan. That you paid $0 and the required payment was $544,000, but then you made that up in February of 2026, making the payment of $1,116,000, including late fees that they charged y'all to renegotiate that of $27,000. And then the paragraph just below that is the refinance of the First Financial Bank loan in November of 2025. It said $975 is $954,000 is what that amounted to. That will balloon again in November of 2026. So And then footnote O is the big one that talks about the paragraph reference in the audit opinion letter about your ability to continue as a going concern. And, we're not gonna beat the dead horse relative to the bond defaults, but we are gonna kind of look at these ratios on page 36 as to how your improved financial condition is compared to last year. And you can see the current ratio excluding all of your non-presently due defaulted debt is included in that modified current ratio. It's just the debt that's due as of end of year at that very point in time. You owed it then. It's not what would be due in the next 12 months. Your current ratio was 48%. That should be well over 1. Last year, that was 47%. So your current ratio, modified current ratio, was increased by 1% as far as your liquidity to your current obligations. And then your actual current ratio, all of your current assets divided by your current liabilities, what's currently due and what will be due in the next 12 months, is at 28%. Again, that should be well over 1. 1 should be a worst case scenario. And y'all's is at 28%, which means your liquidity and ability to pay current obligations really is non-existent still. Even though you've got that lifeline from First Financial Bank, without that, you would be really in the hole from a liquidity standpoint, even worse still. And so that is the conclusion, is that you're really not much better off. And the recommendation is that you continue to raise revenues and cut expenses, and which you've done, because you raised your tax rate this year, which will generate another $500,000 in revenue for y'all that didn't come in last year. And so as a result of that, you should likely continue to improve, and so that's where I'm going to go here, and to see the comparisons of this year to last. And so this is the management letter that kind of re-emphasizes where you are and what I recommend that you do going forward. And that's going to be on this second page, basically, right here. So as you look at this, you see these same ratios, basically a regurgitation of what's in that footnote. And then on the next page, on the back of that page, it just says, what my recommendation is that you do a thorough review of your finances to determine where expenses can be cut, and also a review of your revenue streams to see where increases in rates and fees can occur. And of course, you hadn't maximized your local effort on your tax rate last year. You raised it almost to maximum this year, but you still had a little bit of wiggle room still in your tax rate, of which you could have gone up even a little bit more. And so the next page is kind of a comparison of this year to last to see where you stand related to last year. And so it shows the same ratios in column 1 of 2025 versus the ratios that were there last year. And you can see the modified current ratio again increased by 1%, and the actual current ratio increased by 3%. And so it went from 25 to 28% liquidity. And then I think even the more interesting thing to look at are your revenue and expenditure streams of this year compared to last. And you can see in the total revenues, your total revenues increased by $700,000 this year, which was incredibly needed. Because if you had not increased your revenues, you would be in much worse shape today than you were at this point in time last year. And you can see the categories of revenues that increased: property taxes, water, sewer, and sanitation. Both of those two combined was almost $1 million. The decrease was in grant revenue, and that's just that's okay, because those are non-current and non-locally generated revenues. And so excluding the grant revenues, you increased revenues this year by about $1 million, and that's really good. But again, the emphasis is you got to keep pushing further and get those tax rates up again, which is what you've done for 2026. The expenses, however, really haven't changed significantly so. You can see total expenses this year were $9,839,000. Last year they were 9.6. The big increase in expense is going to be in your principal and interest. You increased those from this year to last by about $230,000 more principal and interest paid this year than last. And also depreciation expense, which is non-cash, increased by $90,000. And that's going to continue to grow as those projects complete. Your water plant, which was roughly $7 million, construction in progress still, because you were still doing some work on it as of the end of the last fiscal year. That will probably likely complete this year. And so that $7 million asset is going to go and start being depreciated most likely this fiscal year over a 40-year life. That's going to be a big depreciation expense number for that line item that's not currently being depreciated. And so you're probably going to see depreciation expense go up another $100,000 again in 26 versus 25. Some of the other items that went up, as you can see, your sanitation costs did go up by $42,000. The bigger one was in the Parks and Recs, and that is going to be related to the athletic complex. Revenues went up, so did expenses, because a lot of those expenses are flow through to the vendors. And so that's why those expenses went up, even though you'll see that the charges for services went up as well. And so that's the charge to y'all, is to whittle those expenses as much as you can, instead of allowing them to continue to grow and grow and grow. And then when we look at the last two sections on this page, you can see your outstanding debt at end of year this year versus outstanding debt last year. You can see the balances really didn't change much. As a matter of fact, they went up. But they went up because of the First Financial Bank loan. You can see that $1,272,000 this year that was not there last year. And then the last section is what your future average debt service payments will be going forward. This is an average. For the year that you're in now, that debt service payment will be about $5 million. But over the life of the final maturity of all your debt, the average of your annual payments between both general and enterprise funds is about $2.8 million. That's a heck of a lot of money. And again, you got it, and you're dealing with it, but it's a big piece of your cash flow budget. And so that's why y'all have been seeing such a crunch in cash, is because your debt burden is so high and your revenues were not high enough to support that debt burden. And then the last page shows all of your debt by line item, highlighted by which is enterprise fund debt and which is general fund debt. That that's in yellow is enterprise fund debt. That which is in orange is general fund debt. And you can see roughly half is general and half is enterprise. So the general fund has a significant portion of that debt, as does enterprise. The biggest piece for the enterprise is that performance services loan of $14.2 million. The biggest piece for the general fund is a $14.3 million loan that was used to finance the athletic complex. And so those are the two biggest loans that you've got outstanding. And then you see all the other ones as well. That's just for your information. Shows interest rates on those and when they're due. And so that is your audit presentation for another year. So I'm going to see if you have any questions. You're probably done, like you should have been done 30 minutes ago. And, so I'm going to be quiet now.
So do you have anything?
The main thing that I had was, one important thing is that even S&P looks at is the audit being performed on time.
It was. Yeah, it was delivered to y'all about 6 weeks ago.
Was it?
Yeah.
And I sent it over to them before April 1st.
Okay. Before March.
March 31st, yeah.
Michael?
No, sir.
Jim? Amy? David?
No, sir, just thank you. Appreciate all the effort.
Thank you.
Well, that's about all the beating I can take for the night.
Well, thank y'all.
Thank you.
So,
I probably spoke longer than you wanted me to. Anyway, I'm gonna head out.
Thank you, Cameron. Appreciate it.
so we know, obviously, we have our work cut out for us. We've known that going into it. There's nothing new in this that we haven't seen or already knew. We're working on it. We are going to continue to work on it. So the time is 9:01. And at this time, I will say,